So I didn't know what track it was. I would just like, and there's like 100 tracks on these things. So
Oh,
I'd
I
sit
know. It
there,
was like
I'd be like,
70 songs.
yeah, I'm like, not this one next, not this one next, not this one next. Every single time I try to listen to it, and then we'll just like put it on loop for like an hour or however long.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you doing this. And first off, we always talk about where were you born and raised? Were you born in London?
No, Dublin, born and raised Dublin.
Okay. Yeah. And did you spend most of your time there in Dublin growing up?
Yeah. I lived there till I was like 20. Yeah, like 20. I think I left like 2016. 2017.
Okay.
It's like when I started touring and stuff. So and I've never, maybe aside from like a couple months here and there, like the start of the pandemic, I went back, lived there for like a couple months. And maybe one other time I spent a couple months there, but I haven't really been back since, you know.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. I did see that your birthday is like just a couple days before Christmas. Is that right?
Yeah. 23rd.
How is that growing up? I'm just curious because falling that close, did you kind of get like the short end of the stick, like all your presents kind of lumped together in one thing?
Yeah, I
or
mean,
was it like they'll do a celebration for your birthday and then like earlier later than Christmas?
it was kind of, I would do like, yeah, there'd be like a birthday cake like in and amongst the like run up to Christmas kind of things that was
Okay.
it was a little bit like consumed by that, but I wasn't mad. And I think like by the time I was kind of old enough to care or not care about my birthday, I never really cared about like celebrating my birthday. Maybe it's because it's that close to Christmas and I'm kind of seeing everyone I want to see anyway. So I
Sure.
never felt the need to like, I still don't like to have like a big party or like a big gathering. I'll just do like a dinner or something.
That's cool.
But yeah. So
Yeah, it
yeah,
must be nice because I guess you'd have like extended family maybe around at that time if you're celebrating holidays, and then that can all kind of be lumped into your birthday. I always wondered that though. It's like, oh man, like do you kind of get screwed? Like,
yeah, yeah. So you see everyone anyway, and like if let's say we're going to like my granny's house or something, like there would be a birthday acknowledgement like cake, even if it was like the week before, the week after. So
sure.
it's or like just like some ice cream or I don't know. You know, you're a kid, it's whatever. But
Right.
the presents thing, especially as I got like grew into like my teen years, I kind of just asked people just to give me some money instead of getting me presents because I was like into music and was like wheeling and dealing music gear, like buying and
Okay.
selling guitars and this kind of shit. Like, you know, that whole like, maybe you've seen those memes where like someone brings a paperclip somewhere and tries to trade up as high as they can.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
like a sneaker convention or they like wherever they are. And I was basically doing that with like, I would ask people just for some money instead of like presents.
Like a present, right?
But like because my birthday and Christmas were like 2 days apart, I would get a lump of money and then spend it all on some shit and then be like broke the whole rest of the year, which is how I live my life. But you know, it allowed me to slowly like climb up the, I guess, pecking order of gear, like starting with a super cheap guitar and then like a couple of years later having saved up some money, trading the guitar with some cash for like a nicer guitar and like
Oh yeah.
getting
Kind of
it
building
was
that
fun.
way. Yeah, going from your whatever the basic model is, and then you can trade that in and get a little cash back, and then also throw on top of that, and then just kind of keep upgrading.
100%. Yeah.
That's cool, man. Well, you are classically trained on violin. Is that the first instrument you learned?
Yeah. My parents put us all, like I have three siblings, so my parents put us all into music lessons. Like even before I was learning violin, it was just this like music class where they kind of taught you about music. And so then they just told us all to pick an instrument, and I picked a violin, and they put us in lessons for those instruments. So my little brother and little sister chose piano,
Okay.
and so ended up getting like a little electric keyboard thing that was in the house for them to learn on. And so because that was there, I started playing with that, and I like kind of taught myself piano in parallel with the violin, but like kind of sneaking it because when you're a kid, I think I started violin when I was like 6 or 7.
Wow.
So when you're a kid, like even though I chose this violin like as something I wanted to do, as soon as someone's telling you to do it, I did not want to do it anymore.
Sure.
Like, you need to do this for 10 minutes every day. I'm like, no, I don't. And so I was like having the piano on like the smallest amount of volume it could so I could like play. And I was obviously really into music, but like if my parents heard the piano, they'd be like, oh, Jonathan needs to play the violin. And then they'd come in and tell me to play violin, which I didn't want to do. So
Right.
yeah, that's kind of how it all started for me, was like stealing instruments. I borrowed an acoustic guitar from my aunt and uncle for about 3 years. And like taught myself guitar. Yeah.
That's funny. Do you come from a musical household? I mean, to have your parents put you guys in music at that early of an age.
I mean, all of the kids played music. My parents didn't. I like it's not like I have people I know, like friends who are artists or whatever, who grew up in a musical household, like their parents were playing music all the time or doing this. I think my parents, like, which I think is a pretty wise thing to do as a parent, you get your kids to try as many things as possible because you've no idea what they might just like.
Right.
So they were definitely doing that. I played football, I played rugby, I did gymnastics at some point, I swam. Like, they put me in like a bunch of shit. And music just stuck. So all the kids can probably still play their instruments, I would assume. Yeah, so there was like, yeah, I guess there was music about, but it was more just that, like, an activity to do rather than like a cultural, like, listen to David Bowie because he's amazing. Like, I feel like I didn't have any guidance in terms of discovery.
Like outside discovery. Well, do you feel like that could have been like a good thing, just because you're kind of discovering what you want to hear and what you want to listen to?
I think it's a good thing, and not a bad thing, but I don't know. I think it obviously led me to dig for things, and I like finding things. This is like a big part of, like, I don't know, music for me is like finding like, oh my God, I've never heard shit like this before. That's incredible. Sorry, am I allowed to?
Yeah, you can cuss, man. You can say whatever you want.
And yeah, so like discovering things is super fun. I feel like if I had someone telling me like, yo, I found this, listen to this is super good, I would maybe have a more structured, I don't know. I feel like the way I find things is very removed from how, I guess, at least until like I was in my mid-teens, and I became more aware of like music journalism and music culture as a whole, and like the way the scenes and there's like little movements within it. Because until then, it was literally like, I just like this, and I don't know like who the associated artists are. I don't know who's like, what's the demographic that's listening to it. Like, it was just music. And then I feel like if I had someone showing me stuff, it probably would have been a little bit more structured, I guess, in me finding.
I was thinking like more of a structure. Like if your parents were like, here's the Beatles record, and then you're like, oh, okay, that's cool, and then you kind of advance maybe through that.
Yeah, or they'd be like, oh, if you like that, like, you should listen to this because like that this person's like are like the Beatles of like the 80s or like the 90s or whatever, and you kind of it becomes more. It's probably more of like a scholastic or educational kind of approach to music discovery. Whereas mine was completely random because of the internet and that kind of thing.
What was do you remember the first artist that you really discovered and you're like, wow, like this is really cool?
I mean, that happened to me so many times. The first kind of music I was obsessed with was like boy bands. I guess because that's what was on the radio. So when we were in the car and we were listening to music, it was like the first like recognizable thing. I'd be like, oh wait, I'd like recognize their voices. I didn't even think they were singing English, but I would recognize their voices. I thought it was just like syllables, like random sounds. I remember finding one of my earliest memories is around that time, like not sure if people sang English the whole time in songs or, just pleasing sounds. And I had one of those now. That's what I call music.
Oh yeah. Volume, whatever.
Yeah. And Darude Sandstorm was on it, which is like this complete meme of a track. I'm sure you've heard it. It's like,
Yeah.
and I was obsessed with it. And I don't even think I could read. So I didn't know what track it was. I would just like, and there's like 100 tracks of these things. So
Oh,
I'd
I
sit
know.
there,
It was
I'd
like
be like
70 songs.
yeah, I'm like, not this one next, not this one next, not this one next. Every single time I try to listen to it, and then would just like put it on loop for like an hour or however long. So yeah, it like as quite incongruent is maybe the best way to describe my music discovery, because like it was pop music, like cheesy, like commercialized, like factory pop music, and then I also got really into like Eminem, Lil Wayne, Game.
Oh, the
Got
Game,
really
man. I haven't
into
heard that name in a
rock
long
music.
time. What
Yeah,
happened to him?
he's still going, man.
Is he?
Yeah, he's actually there's been a couple of things that he's dropped in like the last few years that I've been like, oh shit, that's actually
Damn, I gotta look that
nice.
up.
Yeah, there's like a couple collab moments where he's like featured somewhere or done something with someone where it's like, oh shit, yeah, so he's still going.
That's crazy.
But like then into like rock music, then like metal, and then like heavier electronic stuff like Prodigy, that kind of thing. And yeah, so it's kind of everything, but like in different stages, and I still kind of listen to everything now.
So when so you're playing violin, but also piano, kind of linear with violin. How long did you continue that? I mean, if you're classically trained on the thing, you must have played it all the way through what, primary school, high school?
I think I started when I was like 6 or 7, and when I was 12 or 13, my teacher left Ireland. She was a Bulgarian lady, and I think I used that as the excuse to stop learning it. I was supposed to do grade 8 at that point, which is like the top of the grade system or whatever that we have. And I think she was leaving the country. I was like, cool, I don't want to do this anymore. My mom was like, okay, you can stop lessons, but you still have to play in like the orchestra or like this. So
Okay.
at least I wasn't like learning anymore, but I got to a decent level. So yeah, there was like 6 years of like learning, and then I still have actually have the violin under a thing over there.
Do you really? Do you ever have you ever put in your songs? I think violin sounds so rad.
Yeah, I've played it in a couple of things. Sometimes it's easier to use fake violins from the computer.
Right.
But yeah, so I'm definitely back to 8-9-year-old level, I think.
Okay.
Now, probably. So not very great, but functional.
Sure.
And, like, I can make the sounds I want to record sometimes.
That's cool. And you said you borrowed your aunt's guitar for like 3 years. How old are you when you did that?
I think maybe 11 or 12.
Oh, okay. So all around that same time, you were learning piano, violin, and guitar.
I had like a few years in. I'm just thinking of like what I was doing in school when these things started. So I had a couple of years in of like violin, and I'd kind of gotten pretty good. I still can't read piano music, because I guess from violin, like you'd like have to read 2 lines at the same time in piano, and like that breaks my brain. So I can play almost anything from by ear.
I wasn't learning. Probably more important.
I mean, it's fine for me. Like I learned piano by shapes, like making shapes, chord shapes. That's how I like learned it. So yeah, those like violin, I was definitely the best at. Piano, I'd pretty much figured out. And I think via that kind of learning experience, I then borrowed my aunt and uncle's guitar when I was like 11 or 12, and then picked that up super quickly. My friend who lived down the road, one of my best friends growing up, his dad was a guitar player, so he had 2 guitars. So sometimes when I was over at their house, I was like messing around with guitar. So I already was a little bit familiar. And so I picked up the guitar super quickly. I think I had their guitar for like 2-3 years. I'm not even lying. And yeah, but then I was like super into guitar. I was playing guitar maybe 3 hours a day.
Wow.
And for someone who didn't want to spend 10 minutes on the violin because someone told me to do it, the guitar was just like, got home from school, finished my homework, played guitar for 3 hours.
Were you just learning songs, or were you trying to write your own songs?
Both. Yeah, by this
Okay.
point I was already writing songs, like, because on the piano.
Wow.
Yeah, I started writing my first songs when I was 7 or 8. Uh, I was taking like an entire Eminem song and just rewriting the lyrics. So like the flow is the same, the chorus is the same, but it's just like my own lyrics. That's how it started. And then yeah, I was writing songs on piano and then on guitar. Um, yeah, and then right in the mix of like the guitar madness, my family got like a Mac computer for the first time.
Hmm.
I think it was like 13, and uh my older brother found GarageBand, which is like that free music making
Yeah,
application
yeah, yeah.
with the computer.
Hmm.
And
Which
so
is
we
pretty
started.
decent too. I mean, I
Yeah, I
haven't.
used it for a couple of years.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, I
you can
have it
still
on
make great.
my newer Mac came with it still. It's like still
Yeah,
like something that they offer.
no, it's great, and you can do good shit with it.
Yeah.
It was we treated it like a toy, and like I was just like dragging loops in, and I was making like terrible techno music. Um, and I think one day I came into the kitchen and he was like making some string arrangement. I was like, wait, I'd heard all the loops because I'd like used all the ones that I wanted to make the song, my like terrible dance music. And so I was like, that's not a loop. And he was like, yeah, I'm like putting in the notes. I was like, you can put in the notes. And he was like, yeah. And he like showed me. And I was like, oh shit. And then I was hooked on that.
Like game changer.
Yeah. And that was like kind of in tandem. I was doing like that a little bit, making like terrible beats and whatever. I was writing songs on guitar and piano and like playing in some bands with my friends until I was like 15, I would
Hmm.
say. And then I think Scary Monsters, Nice Sprites, the Skrillex project,
Oh
like
yeah.
that first moment of dubstep when that dropped, and I was like,
Hmm.
oh shit, this is like you can do anything with this. And then I that's when I went full production mode and like got really started like just taking it seriously and like learning as much as I could about it. I was like trying to make, all different types of songs, like orchestral songs, ambient songs. I was making like rock songs, I was making electronic songs, and like yeah, just started really going hard on the computer stuff.
And
um
is that kind of the moment that you wanted to really pursue music as like a
I
career
think I
path,
always
or?
wanted it. I don't know. I can't explain to you what the thing that made me want to do it was, because in my memory, it's just this omnipresent thing. Like,
Hmm.
oh, so another obsession. I was, yeah, maybe in between. Sorry, the jump from boy band Sandstorm music and Eminem Lil Wayne that I was explaining earlier
Yeah,
is
yeah.
Michael Jackson and Freddie Mercury.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
my dad got me a knockoff iPod called an iRiver. I actually looked this up recently. It's like actually a brick. It's like brick shaped and it's black. And but he wouldn't let me pick my own music, and so I had to ask him like, could you put this on or whatever? And he doesn't
Oh.
have like a great like interest or like knowledge of music, so he would like put on like random like off cuts of like things I wanted, and like, but he put a bunch of, I think he put Michael Jackson number ones, that like compilation on, and he put some Queen greatest hits thing on, and I was obsessed with those. And so there was, I don't know, there was something about, even then I always thought that that was something that I wanted to do. So I don't know, it's not like it was something that predated even that. So it was always something that I felt I wanted to do and that I would do to some degree. It was just I didn't know how, like in
Hmm.
what manner I would do it if I was going to be an artist, or like, at this point when I was doing the computer stuff, I thought like, oh, being a producer would be cool. I was really into Sean Kingston when that came out. I remember like Beautiful Girls and
Yeah,
stuff. I
yeah.
was like maybe 12, 13 when that came out. And the producer tag at the start was always like JR, and it was like the pew, 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 pew.
Yeah,
That was his
yeah.
like tag. And I looked up who it was, and his name was Jonathan. I was like, his name's Jonathan too. I can do this. And it's like weird how little representation you need to like form some kind of self-belief. So I was like, maybe I'll be a producer. And that's how I was like in the computer thing, just like messing around, making beats, making songs. So it was always something that thought I wanted to do.
And then how do you, so once you start doing that and you're creating these beats and making these productions, like, are you then collaborating with people to get the top lines on there, or how, were you writing everything and singing over it, or like
I was making like instrumental stuff.
Okay.
At first, for some reason, it was very separate in my brain. Like the songs I was writing by myself or with my friends in bands, whatever, was separate from the music I was making on the computer.
Okay.
And over a few years, it just all merged, and I stopped being in bands. I was just doing computer stuff, and then I was writing and recording myself over my own productions as well. So I think, yeah, from the age of like 13 to 15, it was completely separate, and then from 15 to like 18. It first started like super EDM, and I'd like write something over the bridge maybe or whatever, record that, and then it would just expand, and now the whole song is kind of a singing song with just kind of electronic influences. And then like 2014, when I was like 18, 19, I really like connected that, like, oh, I'm just making songs now. And then like I stopped thinking of them as beats, and like the separation kind of completely disappeared, and it was all just computer stuff.
Okay.
I was just posting stuff online from, I think for the first while I was just sending files to my friends.
Okay.
And then from like 2011, 2012, I started posting things on the internet, just on SoundCloud. And I was just doing that for a few years, and it just kept building and building and building as I was finding like more and more of like a sound, I guess. It just kept growing. And then so by the time I changed my name to Eden in 2015 and dropped the first EP, the end credits EP, there was already like, I already had songs with like a couple million views on YouTube or 100,000 streams or whatever. So it wasn't even a question for me by the time I went to university for like a semester and a half before I dropped out. And dropping out was like not even a leap of faith, because it had just grown in this way where I was like, okay, why am I in uni when this is,
because the music was working.
I was spending all my time on the music. I was skipping everything humanly possible to skip in uni to do music. And it was a consistent, like, it wasn't like this one song has loads of plays and nothing else did. It was like a consistent, like, everything I was putting out, I was just dropping music online for free.
And it was just landing with people.
It just kept kind of increasing and growing. And at that point I was like, uni is a waste of my time.
Were you going for music or something totally different?
No, I wanted to be an astronaut. That was the like official career path. So I was studying physics.
Damn, that'd be a hard profession.
I mean, it's funny because like both of these career paths are like statistically hyper unlikely to achieve anything in, I wasn't really expecting to become an astronaut. I wanted to get as close to it as possible, but I know, like, out of however many million people there are and however many thousand people might want it, you end up with like 6.
Wow.
And that's like 6, and then they're like, we're good for the next 4 years, and maybe you miss the window and you're done. So like I knew it was super unlikely, so I was like, I'm just gonna learn, and like maybe I'll be like an engineer or like aerospace or something. I don't know.
Yeah. But it's interesting because like I think of how many musicians there are and how many people are trying to, especially anyone with a Mac now can call themselves a producer. So it's like there's like such a there's even smaller fraction of people that have achieved even close to what you have. Like if you looked at like an astronaut versus like a musician, like if you like numbers wise, you know what I mean?
Oh, that would be an interesting comparison, because I looked up like what it took to like get into these programs and like how many people applied when they had openings for the astronaut thing. Obviously there's none of that for music, but I was like, damn, that's like,
there's a lot of people. You're the first person I've ever spoke to that said that they're pursuing a career. Like, I would just think an astronaut is so far fetched that people would be like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to be an astronaut. You know
I don't know. It's something I wanted to do.
No, that's so rad. I think that's awesome. But like I said, like if I was looking at stats, I would imagine. I mean, obviously, I could be totally off. You've done the research that I wouldn't think that many people would be not striving, because it's an awesome thing, but think like mentally think like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then apply for it. Where it's like, I could just pretend like I'm a musician on my computer.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because the access to the music thing is so much broader and easier. So maybe statistically that is now more unlikely. But I remember looking up for the last like NASA pool thing they did at the time. I don't know what the stats are now, but I think there was like 4 positions that they were looking to fill in terms of people to go to the ISS or whatever.
Yeah.
I think for the first round, like 25 to 30,000 people applied.
Wow.
So I was like, well, I'll do my best. You know?
Right. Yeah, that's a lot.
I think I might be too tall anyway.
There's a height restriction.
Well, I think the height restriction is maybe 6'2", so I think I'm on the limit. But yeah, music.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah, sure. Well, okay, so you started the Eden Project after you already had some success. You already had an album out, right, in 2014, or was that first thing you put out with the Eden
So there's a
Project?
lot of like misconception about that, because when I changed the name to Eden, it was the Eden Project before, when I was making like more EDM stuff, or at least releasing more EDM stuff. When that came to an end and I changed to Eden, I, like, as a thank you kind of to everyone who was listening, I cataloged all of the things I'd released, which was like 80 songs or something. And I put them in the folders. So people think they're albums, but like a lot of them are just
songs
that were like, from like this kind of period. I put them all in one folder and I named it something. There were EPs that I had done as Eden Project.
Okay.
But a lot of people, looking back at this old material, think like, oh, look at all these albums. And they're just like,
I was wondering, because I'm like, it looks like you had a bunch of stuff out. And then when you changed
I mean, there was a bunch of stuff, but it
wasn't like full project. It was just songs that you had been releasing over the years. Sure.
Yeah.
And
I think
well, it sounds like,
point,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just to illustrate that, I think at one point coming up to like the exams to leave school, we have in Ireland called the Leaving Cert. I guess it's an SAT level thing. But we only get to do them once, and they're all at the same time at the end of the year. And instead of studying for that, I released a song every Monday for like 8 weeks. So it was shit like that. It was like, these songs are were all made together like an album would be, but they were never like put in the folder like, this is an album. But
like, this is the whole album and it's this. Gotcha.
Yeah.
What was there a particular song that kind of started the snowball of people coming in and like building your catalog? You said like, it started to kind of grow, and then you knew you had a couple 100,000 streams and millions of views, and things just kind of took off to where you knew that was what you
there wasn't a moment.
There wasn't a moment. Okay.
No, it was just a consistent thing where like the songs I put out would slowly get more plays than the ones I did before. So more and more people were finding it. I was just posting this stuff on SoundCloud for free. And I think what helped was I guess, hitting this like weird post, like everyone got super EDM like from 2012, like with that post. It was like pop music sounded like Skrillex. So like I was kind of hitting this like wave that was happening, obviously nothing to do with me or because of me, but I was hitting this thing, and I was like maybe combining it in a way that was slightly like unaccounted for at the time.
Like here in the States, and I was living in San Francisco at the time, and I worked for an alternative radio station. I came from radio, did that for a long time, and I was originally from San Diego, and I moved to San Francisco. That's when all like 2010 was for me. Like San Diego didn't really have the EDM scene, and then this thing was massive when I had moved there. That was like Avicii and Deadmau5 and Skrillex, and all those artists were like popping off as like getting radio play, which was something that I'd wasn't even a thing at that point.
But then even like conventional pop artists like were doing like, there's drops in like Beyonce songs for some fucking reason, and like that's just how music works. And, so I think maybe I was just like adjacent to that appetite, and I was doing my thing, and so it was just growing. There was like never like this happened and then it was all different. Well, there was once, but it was post this. But you know, it was slowly like this song did like 5,000-10,000 more plays on SoundCloud than the one before, and it was just slowly like that kind of progression. And then I was just, as I said, posting it on SoundCloud for free, but people were putting it on YouTube, like the Majestic Casuals, Mr. Suicide Sheep, this couple channels called, there was Koala Control, there was like a couple of these channels that just posted other people's music, and like so that kind of started seeding it into YouTube. I wasn't even putting it there, and then it like really, like, people on YouTube really liked it, and then it all just started feeding off itself, I guess. And so when I did change my name, I started putting out the singles for this EP, the end credits EP, the first one under Eden. And like I knew it was at a certain level, and the play count did not in any way exceed what I thought it was going to do, because it had been such a consistent build. Like I was like, cool, I'm happy with how this is going out. People are commenting and saying they like the music. That's cool. But one thing that did happen was Mr. Suicide Sheep guys paid a PR person to do a PR blast around the lead single end credits, which I'd never send my music to labels, blogs, you know, music writers, whatever. I literally just posted on SoundCloud. So this is the first time anyone had done that. And do you remember this website, Hype Machine?
Hype Machine? Yeah.
The song went like #2 on Hype Machine after like Macklemore.
Damn.
And then that changed a lot, but not in terms of like growth, in terms of fan base, but it was industry, because suddenly
that was like gold standard, man. If that was like Spotify having millions of plays on Spotify back then.
Yeah, but the funny thing is the plays and stream count and whatever were not affected by it. Like it's not like I was at like 1,000 streams a day or like on a track, and after that it was like 10,000, or, you know, there wasn't any noticeable increase, aside from the fact that my email inbox went nuts with record label A&Rs, publishers, lawyers. I met with every record label I'd ever heard of.
Wow.
Because they all were completely unaware of what I had been doing. And then this song went on, because they all just stared at the Hype Machine thing, I guess, and were like, wait, oh, this is cool, let's sign this. And so
yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, it was like TikTok.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And then my name appears for the first time. They're like, oh, this is cool. And they click into it, and it's got like this built-in fan base already, with like this like multi-platform like numbers that are like doing well, and they're all like losing their mind that they didn't figure out about this until right now. And so I had like 10 weeks of multiple meetings and or phone calls every day. I was getting cold calls. I was literally picking up my phone and being like, hello, and they're like, hey, this is blah 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 from this record label, blah 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 blah, gave me your number. I don't know who any of these people are. Like I was in over my head. That shit sucked.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you must have been so overwhelmed.
I mean, it was great. It was really exciting at the time. I kind of took everything in a like, which I think has served me well to a degree. I was kind of like, yo, these idiots don't know what they're doing. Oh God, I was like 19, but yeah, I was not interested in working with any of them.
So you didn't assign to a label at all?
I told everyone no.
But how smart was that on the back? I mean, you already had the fan base.
That was like I'm really glad that my head was in that place where I was like, no, I don't want to do this. But like that period of time really, really messed with my head, because it took music from being this like thing that I did, and I felt like very like kind of master of my own world. I was like making my songs, I was putting them online, however I designed for them to go online. Like it was still all free until this point. It's still actually, yeah, that first EP was just free. I got my little brother, who's like taught himself how to code, to make me like a little website where people could put in their email and like download the thing. And I think in the first weekend it was downloaded like 20 or 30,000 times. And I was like, that like blew my mind. He like put a little counter on. And so like I didn't feel like I needed any of these people.
Right.
I was like, this is fine. I'm doing my thing. It's all free. Like if I ever needed money, I'd just like press the iTunes button, and then I could start making money from it, I guess. And so I told them all no, but it really messed my head because it ruined music. Like it suddenly I was like, I had literally 10 weeks of people analyzing my music to my face and be like, this is smart because you did this and this, and we want you to work with this person and this person because, you know, you kind of like rapped over this, but it's not a hip hop beat, but then you had a more hip hop beat and you were singing and it's crazy. And I didn't care about any of this. And like, suddenly I was so conscious about the industry and how, and like the formulation of things. And one of the record labels were really like persistent. So I told everyone no. And then over the course of the next like 6 months to a year, they like just literally kept bugging me. So then I started working with them. So that's how I ended up working with Universal for a few years.
Okay.
But yeah, no, that whole period like got really confusing. And like I did a lot of things I wouldn't ever say I regret or I'd want to change. But like I got like really depressed for a few years. Like it really sucked the joy out of it.
Yeah, once you kind of get that behind the curtain look, it's like, like there's the magic is kind of not the magic, but I mean it's kind of you can get kind of jaded with it.
It was suddenly everything felt like really leechy and everyone wanted shit from me, and I felt like you know, I started doing shows off the back of those weeks and weeks of meetings. I did start working with my manager, who I still work with. So that was good. We started doing shows. I like stressed myself out way too much about the shows, so I wasn't enjoying being on the road at all. Like performing was really taking a toll on like my mental health at the time, and it's something I've like slowly like beaten myself into submission with. So like I'm now like looking forward to doing shows, which is 6 years later. So yeah, it just all got really like it was like, I love this, I have to be doing this, I'm not allowed to complain or stop. That was like my headspace. Like I wanted this, so I have to keep doing it and going. Like, or like I would have killed for this, so like I'm not allowed to complain about it. And that's like a really unhealthy way to like treat yourself. So yeah, I lived like the next number of years without ever like taking a break or whatever until the pandemic. I'd done 3 shows of a world tour when the pandemic happened and canceled all the rest of it. And that was the first time in my adult life where I went home and was like, fuck, I've nothing to do. Yeah.
Was that like, do you feel like that was good for your mental health
amazing
to stop that? Like, I mean, it's like one of those things. You feel like you got kind of wrapped up in this is happening, this is working, you know, I'm doing what I love, or what I pursued to do and what I love, and I can't stop, because if I stop, I might the whole thing might stop.
I don't know, if it wasn't really a fear of like losing it. Like it wasn't like I need to keep going because if I stop, like it'll go away.
Right.
I definitely felt like I just had to keep moving. But I'm not really sure why. And I think especially as like my love for the thing got really like diminished at times. I just kept doing things, and I think that maybe served me well to some degree and was really detrimental in other degrees, in other respects. But yeah, I just felt like I just needed to keep moving, and like maybe that was some way of avoiding dealing with how I felt about everything, because you know, and it's something that I literally was obsessed with since I was a kid, to then be, you know, it's like music doesn't, it's wiggly hair. The music didn't like hurt my feelings. It was just all the apparatus and industry around it. And for that to suddenly kind of feel like this is something that is draining me and is painful, it was something I didn't want to confront. And maybe that's why I was just like, I just need to keep going. Like, okay, working on music, working on the next thing, things that now I'm on tour, back from tour, I need to make the next thing. Like never took a break. Like was always like brain just completely spinning on the next thing, on the next thing, on the next thing, on the next thing.
Yeah. I mean, you put out No Future, and then that's the tour you're on. You put that on February.
Yeah.
You're on tour to support it, and then the pandemic hits.
Yeah.
So you didn't really get an opportunity to give that one a full,
The funny thing is, like, I say that like I'm looking forward to touring now, and a large part of that reason is because of how good those first 3 shows were. That London show was, which was, we did the first show in Dublin, we did London, Manchester, and then the world shut down and closed the borders, so we had to go. But that London show is my favorite show I've ever done. It was amazing.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was like finally, like, you know, after all these years and years of like just keep moving, I was finally like, oh shit, cool.
Like, I love this.
I'm starting to like find my feet here. And then the world was like, nope.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So then you're home and you finally get kind of a mental health break, so to speak. I mean, obviously it was a terrible reason for it, but you're home. And then when do you start working on the record that just came out, or the album just came out?
Immediately.
You missed it.
That was
wow.
Like, yeah,
so you didn't really slow down.
No, well, no, not at first. So that's the thing. So I got home, I was like, cool, I'm gonna make the next album that's gonna come out this year. And that's what I started doing. And one of the first things I made, you know, I actually went back to my parents' house at that time because no one knew what was happening. And we didn't know if there's going to be food on the shelves. I was like, I'll go.
Right. Yeah. It was scary times.
Just in case shit hits the fan. And so one of the first things I made, I thought, in that period was Call Me Back, which is kind of that, like, long song. It's, for me, it's kind of like the heart or the core of this album. So like I made a bunch of shit, really, then was like super like, I'm working. I think I had a couple months of that, and then it all stopped. And then I was like, I can't look at this anymore. And I think I went 3 or 4 months without doing any music, which is like the first time in my life, probably. Like, yeah.
Was that difficult? And then like, what made you come back and go, I should pick this up?
I think, you know, I think I had a little bit of time as restrictions were easing up in Dublin. I started to just hang out with my friends instead. And like, when I got home, I didn't open the music program or play piano or whatever, like I usually would. And it's just like having a nice time. It felt like a relief. And then I moved back to London. I mean, my place was still here, but like I just wasn't living here. So I came back to London after a few months, and then London was really open that first summer, which I think really backfired for them that winter. But you know, there was like bars and stuff, so I just started cycling around the city, like catching my friends, doing this, going to a museum, doing whatever. And I just was actually like living my life for a minute instead of working
for the first time ever.
Yeah, and it slowly crept in. Like I started working on like there's an artist I work with a lot called Atu, so we started working on some music for him, and then I started working again on my own stuff. And then, but over the 2 years, it was the 2 pandemic years, it was like periods of like, I don't want to work on music, and I didn't for like 2 weeks at a time, whatever. And, which I would never like allow myself to, which I would have never allowed myself to have done previously. And just being around as well in one place is like the longest I've ever been around. Like,
yeah, I mean,
as an adult,
jumping up and getting on the road, exactly.
Yeah,
record road. Yeah.
So it was just nice to like, we were throwing like parties with my friends, or we were doing whatever, or you know, just meeting up in the park, playing football, doing just like normal shit. Yeah, and it was really healthy.
And did you feel like that benefited the album?
Oh, 100%. I wouldn't have, like, if it had been normal time, I don't know. I mean, who can say what could have or would have happened, but the precedent leads me to believe that I wouldn't have given myself the space that this album ended up requiring. Like, I thought I'd finished the album 2 or 3 times before it was actually finished.
Interesting. Did you come back to it and like hear something, or like you had a new idea? Or
I was just bringing whatever songs I was working on to a point, and it would just stagnate, and I'd just start hitting my head against the wall, and I'd be like, this isn't right. I'd be like tweaking them and tweaking them and tweaking them and tweaking them, and then it would get to a point of like, all right, let me just shelve this and try and make it one thing or a couple of things completely new and completely fresh, and just see how that feels. And then those would be so good that I'd be like, okay, fuck that shit. That shit's all in the bin. And some of it would come back. So like that's Call Me Back made it through all the
cuts.
So that's kind of how you know. I was like, okay, this is like really special. And I knew it was special from when I recorded it, but like there was like sci-fi also was started in that like start of the pandemic kind of part of 2020, and you know, got deleted with not deleted but like put in the bin.
Yeah, put in the bin with
the album, and then like came back, and it's kind of like how I knew that like, okay, there's something about this. Sci-Fi ended up remixing maybe 3 times, so the original version is not what's on the album, but the song, like I wrote the song and then would just take the vocal and start again because it wasn't working. And I'd never done that before, and so that like I don't know if I would have allowed myself that kind of process like in a normal pre-pandemic kind of world.
Yeah.
So
well, I think, yeah. Well, it's just interesting because you finally have time, right, to sit on it and listen back and tweak and do this and that. Where beforehand, it sounds like you do the album. Okay, here it is. Boom. Now it's time to tour it.
That's not to say I didn't spend time on the albums before. I know,
but I mean, it's not. You don't have probably the length to wait around and listen to it a million times.
I would just have like a mental timeline that I would be like, I need to get this done. And so, you know, as I'm working on the music, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm this much in. I should probably be able to finish this by, you know, this month. And so I would spend all my time on it. It would get to that month. Maybe I'd go like a month over or something. But like that was like, I'd be like, okay, I have these songs. I can probably finish them by this time. Go a little bit over. I'm like, okay, cool. That's done.
Right.
Like, you know, it takes.
There's like more of a deadline.
It's not even a hard deadline, because if it took like another 3 months over that, I would, that's fine, because like I wouldn't put it out and, you know, have things that were bugging me about it, you know. But
right, of course.
But I wouldn't let it take 2 years longer than I thought.
Sure.
So this album just dropped September 2022, and I wanted, my idea when the world went into the first lockdown was I wanted it to be out in 2020.
Yeah, the album's only been out for a week.
Yeah,
I think, right? A week or two.
No, a week today.
Yeah, I was gonna say it just kind of came out, so that's yeah. I think the record's amazing. Hopefully you'll come close to me when you announce your tour.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a Nashville date, but I just don't know off the top of my head.
That's all good, man. Well, I appreciate your time today, and thank you so much, man. This has been so much fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I do have one more quick question before I let you go. I'm already taking too much of your time up, but I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
I get asked that a fair bit, and I think my only advice is to just do whatever it is you're doing. If it's music or sculpture or painting, or you know, you want to be a chef, just do it and like keep doing it. A lot of people like tend to like put things off. They want it to be perfect, or you know, in terms of music, like I have this project, but like I want to wait for the right time to really just put it out. Just start and don't stop, basically. Bringing it backward.